true believers. This is Jason Burgos for Sherdog.com, and I have the pleasure of being joined by one of the top stars of their ever-growing One Championship. She will headline part 1 of the promotion's 2-part century event on October 13th in Tokyo, Japan. The biggest event in the promotion's history, again, because she was on the first one that was like the biggest. Now she has to be on the second one that's the biggest ever. That's how big of a deal she is. But on that night, she will be on the hunt for revenge against Xiong Jingnan, the woman that beat her in an attempt for the strawweight title. Now they run it back as my guest defends her atomweight title for the first time in over a year. That woman is the unstoppable one, Angela Lee. Angela, thank you for joining me, and it is a pleasure to get to talk to you again in the lead up to this really big fight on a really big event.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
Now, when we talked last, it was like right before the Nicolini fight. So, of course, I want to go back to that fight before we get to the Xiong rematch. I've watched that fight a couple of times now, and it was a close fight, but I felt like you won. I thought you did what you needed to do to win, but that didn't happen. Was that decision at the end of the fight, was it a surprise to you, or when they started to announce the judges' scorecards, were you concerned? Did you feel like, damn, this is a really close fight. I don't know how this is going to go?
I felt like it was pretty back and forth, but I felt like I really went for the finish in the last round. And I mean, yeah, it was pretty frustrating, but at the same time, you never know what happens when you leave it to the judges, right? So, I was frustrated, but I knew that, I knew that I pushed hard towards the end and I went for the finish. So, for me, that's always most important. Obviously, getting that decision loss was a bit disheartening, especially after my first fight in March. Didn't really start off the year right. And yeah, I mean, I guess I was pretty frustrated after that fight.
She's arguably one of the best, if not the best, female grappler on the planet that is now in mixed martial arts. Of course, she got you down on a couple occasions, but on almost every occasion, you were able to sweep her and then do far more meaningful work on top with ground and pound and stuff like that. Going back to those grappling exchanges, was the hype on her resume, like, was it legit when you grappled with her? And tell me about, how you were able to get those sweeps on a world champion, multi-time world champion Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioner like you did.
Yeah, Nicolini, she's solid grappler, world champion. And we understood that and we gave her the respect that she deserved coming into the fight. However, we did know that this is a MMA fight, and MMA is different than just straight grappling. So that's what we wanted to do. We wanted to neutralize her grappling. I felt like I shut down any attempts that she had for submissions. I felt like I was able to reverse the positions and whenever I was on top, looking for ground and pound and to advance my position. Yeah.
And I think when we talked last time, you talked about you worked with her a little bit before. Did that little bit, wasn't much. Did it help in terms of like you had a feel for her, had a feel for her strength and stuff like that? So you were able to really match her in a lot of ways. Did that stuff help, or it was just in the moment, your own technical skills, you were able to match her just because of those reasons?
It was definitely something I had to prepare for, and luckily there's a lot of footage, a lot of video footage on Nicolini, on her past grappling matches, and yeah, so that definitely helped in preparation for the count.
In our last chat, we talked competing at strawweight, how you felt really good at the weight, how it could be a home maybe in the future for you. Now, after 2 bouts in the class, you didn't get 2 wins. You got 2 losses. Now, granted, it was against the champion and a likely #1 contender, Nicolini. Do you feel any concerns about possibly moving up still to strawweight? Maybe one day, has it put some doubt in your mind? Maybe you feel that atomweight is a longer term home for you, or do you really just chalk it up to just tough nights on 2 of the very best in the division, and it hasn't deterred you at all maybe thinking about that one day?
Even though I've had these 2 losses, I'm not discouraged one bit. Um, I felt really strong at strawweight. I didn't feel like I was at a disadvantage. If anything, it was probably just more mental, and I feel like I fixed that. In this training camp, it's been really enlightening for me to to see what I did wrong and to see what I need to do to fix it. And a lot of it isn't even in the training. A lot of it is just in the mental preparation in itself. So I feel like, you know, of course, I can't really talk too much beyond this fight, but I'm definitely not giving up in the strawweight
I
division.
talked to Michael Schiavello recently, and he felt Xiong might be better physically by going down in weights to your weight at atom weight than you may have been by going up to strawweight, because you've been unbeaten, you've been unstoppable at atom weight. That was his idea. Do you feel you could get an even better version of Xiong than the first time by going down, especially since she had a few months to prepare for this? It wasn't like something over 4 weeks. She had a lot of time to get down to the weight in a healthy way.
Um, I really I can't comment too much on how I think she's gonna be at in this division because she's never fought at atomweight before. She's only competed at strawweight. But as for me, this is a familiar place, and this is where I'm the champion. And I know how hard it is to get down to this weight, and I work my butt off to get here. So yeah, all I can comment is how I'm feeling and leading up to the fight.
Now, when I talked to your brother yesterday, he was talking about that he felt training with you and preparing for you that there almost seemed to be another level of intensity. He mentioned that he felt like this is the biggest fight of your career. Is part of maybe the intensity going into this fight, the motivation, is it to get revenge on her personally, or is it more to defend your title? Is it to end the two fight losing streak? Or is it a combination of all those things? Is there any of those stick out in any type of added motivation going into this fight on October 13th?
There's definitely a lot on the line. There's so much at stake here for me, and I realize that, and it's a lot of pressure, but I feel like it's good pressure. It's good pressure for me to have. And, it's not really so much getting revenge or avenging this loss against her, but, I just want to be able to go out there and do what I do best. And I feel like in the past two fights, I wasn't able to really perform to the best of my abilities, and that's frustrating because any fighter, our main goal is just to live up to our potential and deliver a performance that we know we gave it 100%.
Right.
And when I feel like this fight, I'm going to be able to show that. And the most important thing to me is defending my belt.
Now, you mentioned pressure, and there's obvious reasons, like you just mentioned, why there's added pressure and stuff like that. Do you feel, because sometimes in different situations, maybe in the UFC or different organizations, two losses like that, maybe you don't get the main event slot like you do, maybe you're brought down the card, but one championship has not changed a bit in terms of their support for you right into the main event again. Because honestly, for most of your fights that have to do with a championship, it's either been main event or co-main event. Does that really help, embolden you and give you extra confidence that the organization is clearly still behind you despite the tough losses you've had in 2019?
For me, it's always been such an honor. When one championship puts me on the main event or co-main event, it's a huge honor, and I know that I think they're probably one of the main promotions that paved the way to do that, to put a female headliner. And for me, it just kind of gives me this extra motivation to put on a good show. And I think that one championship, believing in me is definitely a motivator for every single time I go out to fight.
The fascinating thing about rematches that Randy Couture often says, and he actually told me a few days ago on a different topic, is that it can be harder for the winner. The person who lost has clear things they need to change, and the winner has to prepare and wonder what surprises that may come from the person and implement the same thing because they figured that's what won the first time. However, you were winning the first fight with Xiong, and it almost subbed her in the fourth round. You mentioned, though, the last time we talked, your back injury being an issue before that fight and how it affected your cardio going into it and stuff like that. And and are there a lot of changes you need to really make for this fight or in this rematch, or do you feel as long as your cardio is on point like you feel it should and can be, you should win this fight and possibly probably even finish her and have that much of a better performance against her?
Studying the last fight, I did feel like I was doing really good, up until the last round. And, um, injuries are not something to be taken lightly, and it really did affect the preparation that I had leading up into the fight. And luckily since then I've been blessed to have no injuries and be able to just train harder than ever and really push myself. And I feel like I've gained so much confidence from that, knowing how hard I trained for this fight. We really pushed harder than ever. And we made sure that I would be 100% in every single area. So I really feel that this time around it's going to be a way better fight than the first one.
And fans, us journalists, we often hear that about high level athletes and champions and fighters in major fights. This is the hardest I ever pushed, but we don't know. We're not in the camps. We don't know what it's like to be a high level athlete and the differences. What do you feel personally are the differences or things you may have done differently? Maybe it's very specific that makes you feel you've pushed harder than ever. Is it, instead of doing 3 training a day or 4 training a day, or if you were doing 5 days a week, now you're doing every training every day? Like, what are the differences that make you feel, man, I'm pushing harder than ever and Xiong is in trouble on the 13th?
Definitely, for starters, we added cardio into this camp. We didn't slack on it one day. So I've been doing that consistently. I know that I can go hard for five rounds. And we also dissected each area. So we broke it down in the wrestling, in the jiu-jitsu, in the boxing, in the clinch work. And we made sure that in every single area I felt strong, I felt confident, and we brought in specialists to do that. And also getting in the rounds that I needed. I got in so much more rounds, like probably triple the amount of rounds than any camp before. So we really made sure that I was solid in every area, and I feel like that's where most fighters gain their confidence from, is knowing that they trained so hard for this and knowing that they're more than prepared.
And what's fascinating is some of the words you're mentioning: confidence, training harder. You had such a fantastic, impressive run throughout your career and in one championship. Started off 9-0, beating people, dominating people, first round finishes, early stoppages. In certain ways, many athletes often say, especially fighters, a loss teaches them much more than a win does, and a win teaches you stuff, I have no doubt. But do you feel, in a way, these losses change things and evolve things for you, and they've maybe more so than more wins, these losses are making you a better fighter than people have seen in the last few years?
100%, definitely. I totally agree with that. And you know, as much as I don't want to have losses on my records, maybe maybe I really truly believe everything happens for a reason, and um, I don't want these losses to be in vain. I definitely learned so
I
much
asked
from
you
it. And
last time about one in Hawaii, and I've heard from one sources Hawaii and even California are possibilities for events in the near future. You yourself recently said in an interview that you feel 90% confident it will happen. Angela, Madam Unstoppable, let's cut out all the nonsense. Let's make some news here. Can you please just tell me and the world when one is going to Hawaii, because we all want to know? Because I know you know.
honestly, you know what? Nothing is for sure. The only for sure thing is that one championship is making a presence in
Mm-hmm.
the U.S. Where they choose to hold their first event is unknown. But definitely it's exciting stuff, And recently we just had a media scrum over here in Hawaii. For the first time, Christian and I were able to, do interviews, photo shoots, and video shoots here in our home in Hawaii, and it was amazing. It was a really good feeling, and to see everyone really just make a presence here and see them, invite them into our gym, that was incredible. So who knows? I mean, our fingers are crossed. I know that you know me and Christian alone, could make a definitely a
Yep.
good card for one championship Hawaii, and there's so much talent here. um so we'll see. It's only a matter
Now,
of
we got
time.
some surprise news recently as Eddie Alvarez is off of the 1 Century card, and surprisingly, your brother is stepping in against a very scary man on a few weeks' notice. Michael Schiavello was telling me about Doggy and how scary he is, and he changed his name from Doggy to the Baba Yaga from John Wick. He made him seem that scary. Now, his title won't be on the line, but he is still the champion. Now, Dagi's a tough opponent. What are your thoughts on that fight? You know, and do you wish he would have taken much more time to prepare for such a talented, dangerous opponent, or you're feeling really good about this? Because when I was talking to him yesterday, he felt really good. He seemed really confident going to this fight.
Yeah, you know, Christian, he trains every single day like he's in a fight camp. Like he's just his work ethic is incredible. And so I know that even with the news that this came up just a few days ago, that he was so excited, he jumped on it. He said, "Yeah, I'll take the fight." You know, and that's this championship mentality that he has. Not everyone's
Yeah.
gonna do that, especially against a dangerous fighter like Dagi. He's top contender right now, and you know, I think it's gonna be a great matchup for sure. It's gonna be so
Now, of course,
exciting.
fight promotion, co-promotion, and intermingling of fighters is just a thing that just doesn't happen too much, and we don't get to see it too much. But you know, you're an established fighter in this sport now, so everyone, you're a type of fighter that people go, man, if that person fought this person, then that'd be interesting in those divisions. And even 1 Century is interesting in that Pancrase Shudo champions are going to fight each other, which is fantastic. Are there fighters in, say, strawweight or you know, flyweight in other promotions like Bellator, UFC, that, you know, you kind of look at like, man, I'd love to compete against her. That'd be amazing. Because obviously the one that stands out to me, Ali Malay McFarlane, Angela Lee, in a state in Hawaii, I think is money. But what about you? Are there people you would love to compete against in other promotions? Any specific ones?
You know, I definitely, as a fighter myself, I'm always involved in the MMA community, watching other people's fights and cheering them on. You know, Ilima, she's a fellow
Mm-hmm.
Hawaii girl, you know, and you know, we have a lot of respect for each other. Got to hang out with her a few times. But you know, it's really not my place to say or call out fighters. For me, I always just like to encourage people, and yeah, I mean, if it happens down the road, it happens, you know?
In our chat a couple months back, you mentioned traveling as a passion and also photography. Now, we didn't get to go too in depth on the traveling part of this, so I wanted to ask you about it this time. So tell me the top 3 destinations you have visited and really loved, and then 3 places still on like your bucket list that you really want to go to at some point.
Oh man, I've been really blessed to travel to some
Mm.
amazing countries. I think number one on my list that I got to travel to was Santorini in Greece.
Oh.
Greece in general is just
Mm.
amazing. Christian and I, we were able to compete actually in
Mm.
Sparta for the Pancratian World. Um, Second place that I really enjoy is
Mm.
Croatia. Just recently in July, we took a team of kids from our gym to compete in 2 different tournaments. One it was in Croatia and Split, and the other one was in
Wow.
Italy, and that was a really cool experience. They did amazing. And the third coolest place, hmm, you know what? I actually got to do a company retreat with my team Evolve
Mm.
MMA, and they took us all to Maldives, and
Wow.
that was breathtaking. It was just like a dream over there. So, I mean, I'm a lucky girl. I've got to go to a lot of cool places, but there's still a bunch of places that I have
Right.
yet to check out. One of them,
Okay.
Switzerland, Iceland, and then a third, if I could choose. You know what? I haven't been to um Bali yet. And I mean, it's crazy because I traveled all over Asia, and I've even been to
Yeah.
Indonesia, but I haven't been to
Ah.
Bali. And I mean, I've heard it's beautiful over there. So